Good morning, everyone who's joined there. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us for our latest webinar discussing technology in your wine production. For those who don't know me, my name's Jamie Gilchrist. I'm one of the co-founders and directors of Ringtrace, based here in Melbourne. Today I've got three great panellists joining me: in Hognell, Chief Winemaker for Torbreck Vintners in the Barossa Valley; Wolff Fiedler, who's Systems Coordinator and a self-declared expert with Tas Vintners; and Chris Darling, who's the founder and winemaker at Darling Wines, New Zealand. I did promise myself I wouldn't be making this a big focus, but let's get it out the way. We can't avoid any discussions about it with anything at the moment, and that's the good old COVID-19. Chris, we were talking to you recently, and you're currently based in Adelaide in South Australia, but as I just introduced you, Darling Wines in New Zealand. So you're certainly taking social distancing to new levels there. Can you talk a bit about how you've been managing that, and sort of how the lockdown and the inability to travel to your wines been, and sort of strategies that have helped you through there?
Yeah, definitely. Well, this vintage has probably been one of the most, I guess, challenging and different ones I've ever gone through. But yeah, basically run a wine company in New Zealand, based in South Australia, and obviously was looking to go back and forth to New Zealand quite regularly. But obviously that changed about a week before vintage, and I wasn't actually able to get on the plane. So never actually got to taste a grape or a ferment, which is very unusual. But luckily, I have a business partner over there who is au fait at all that, so we managed that part of it. But yeah, the part for me which I needed to keep up with was the logistics and the winemaking, per se, in terms of the actual numbers and volumes, and keeping up to the speed with all that. And yeah, without the client logins to multiple wineries where I'm making my wines, with Ringtrace, yeah, I wouldn't be able to do that very easily with a lot of the other systems that are currently, active, rather than getting reports sent all the time. Yeah, I found it great just to be able to log on any time and actually find out what's going on, especially through the app as well. When you're actually at a meeting with someone and they say, how many litres have you got available to sell, or how many cases can you bottle? Yeah, it's very, very handy.
And then, Ian, when we spoke to you about it, you spoke about sort of finding new ways to engage with your consumers. Can you tell me a little bit more about that, and sort of how you went about that differently?
Well, I think it was just an opportunity to recognise what was able to be achieved online. So upping, social media campaigns and connectivity with our customer database, and basically speaking to those people more regularly. Yeah, it's certainly been able to leverage that opportunity and sell wine. I mean, people obviously, if they can't move and they want to still drink wine, having it delivered to their door is a good thing.
And I recall as well, you guys even went back to the old telephone, picking up the telephone and just calling. You found that helpful. So even those old technologies now, yeah. We saw, so with the phone, we saw a huge uptake in the app usage for Ringtrace this year. And one of the things I found interesting, a lot of people were doing it because it helps reduce the need for sanitizing clipboards and pens and papers that were going to be shared across the cellar crew. So just that's sort of nothing that would even occurred of. Just everyone's got their own mobile device in their back pocket, and making use of that. So Wolf, when we spoke just around sort of smarter supply chain and working smarter, you spoke about an ERP system that you've been using. Can you talk to me about that?
Yes, so that is one of the main things, to have different software talk to each other, which Ringtrace is working on that actively as well. Our temperature control software talks to Ringtrace, and we have an enterprise resource plan in NetSuite, which gives some of our customers the chance to just put in an order. So let's say we want 40,000 liters of Pinot, and we can then just click a button there and say, yes, we can fulfill that in the time that you need it. And it basically streamlines everything. I think in an ideal world, especially in the future with COVID, you want to try get as many of your software suites talking to each other as possible, because then you basically saving on man hours that you have to manually transfer things from one program into the other. You want it all more connected, I think.
Sure. And so what systems do you have connected there?
We haven't got Ringtrace talking to NetSuite yet, but we've got Ringtrace talking to WinVisit, for instance. And we've got a few other ones that talk to each other, like we've got Additive Insights, which is talking to NetSuite. And we also have a quality, safety, and environmental software that we're using, which doesn't talk to the other systems yet, but ideally, at some stage, that would be the goal, I think, achieve there.
Yeah. So, and you're finding that they're real time savers there, having those systems talking. How would you be doing that otherwise if they weren't talking with each other?
We used to, for our temperatures, let's say we had, in one of our biggest vintages, we had 170 ferments at some stage, and we would have to do the temperature entry for them all manually in whatever program we were using at the time. But now we have automatic sensors that read this temperature, send this temperature to the server that runs this software, and then Ringtrace reads this other software and automatically imports it. And that can save in a big vintage with lots of ferments for us potentially an hour a day of data entry.
Sure. And was it difficult to set up?
No, very easy. I quite like these sort of things, setting them up together that they talk to each other, but I have not found that a challenge at all in any program where I made them talk to each other. So it was very quick. Yeah.
Yeah, Jamie, I was just going to say, working in New Zealand at a bigger winery, we're doing the same thing, and it's saves so much time.
Yeah,
just having your temperatures imported in is, and you can do it at a certain time of the day as well. So if you're doing your ferment rounds in the morning, you get the temperatures to upload, just before that, and then you know in real time what's going on.
And you were using WinWizard there as well?
Yeah, correct. Yep. So they would upload in the morning and then go straight to the ferment graphs, and which we used a separate graph outside of Ringtrace just to put a few more features in. But that would just go directly into those. Yeah. And you'd be live really. So it works really well.
We also push out the tank movements to WinWizard as well. You guys must have seen my notes. I was looking to get you guys to bring up WinWizard in my next point. So we're sort of getting ahead there, and we push out product states as well to WinWizard. And interesting, it's not the only tank control system that we speak to as well. So there's TankNet also, which is popular in the US. They're based in Sonoma, where our office is also in California. And again, so we're pulling in the analysis that those systems are taking and pushing out product movements and states as well. So we've got some other interfaces as well, going to some business intelligence tools as well, which are brand new and exciting. So the days of connectivity and how simple it is to exchange data between systems is very exciting. And I remember back when I was first writing code, it was all dumping things out to a file and copying it onto a floppy disk and taking it somewhere else and importing it. But yeah, those days are certainly gone. And we spoke about sort of some compliance and whatnot. And you mentioned that you've got dedicated staff for owning compliance within the business. Can you tell us how this works and sort of what kind of technologies they're using to fulfil that role?
Well, are we talking compliance to winemaking records, or are we talking compliance?
Compliance, yeah, it's an overarching record, so overarching theme, isn't it? So probably winemaking records, but anything to do with the business as well.
I mean, with compliance of winemaking records, they're done live, so all of our operating systems are live for what we do in the cellar, and so I guess at any moment in time we know exactly where we sit with LIPs and additives and the like in what we're doing at that level, but then outside of corporate compliance, one of our staff stays abreast of change in regulations and things like that. There's obviously lots of organisations in South Australia in the wine industry that are advising us of things changes, whether that's pesticides or rules or COVID practices, as we've had over the last few months as the rules kept changing, and you had to adjust your business. For us, we were probably most affected by that at a cellar door level, where the changes for visitations were eliminated, and then slowly the operating for our cellar door changed, where we could do takeaway, we could do obviously delivery, and then we could do seated service with spacing between guests, and we're now back at spaced walk-in visitations, touch wood, for the moment. So, yeah.
And you've got to take the details of all those people as they come.
Yes. Yeah. So you have to record where they're from, and we've got we've now moved to a booking system where we can at least be aware of how many people may wish to turn up, and we can host them in a much more structured fashion and provide them with sit-down tasting, and ultimately actually give them probably a more personal experience. But I think from a cellar door experience, guests have to be a bit proactive about booking ahead and making sure that people can be received.
Yeah, I got I took delivery this week, and it'll be how I spend a bit of my weekend from a new distillery based in Melbourne. They obviously can't have tastings anymore, so I've got a little tasting pack of gin sent to me, which I'll find some time over the weekend to do a virtual tasting, and I think they've got some web technologies as well to have a look at. So I'm excited to see how that works and what's going on there. So, Chris, we've discussed in the past that you've actually sort of mapped out physical processes and then worked on ways to sort of making sure that they're aligning with Ringtrace. Can you talk to me more about that?
Yeah, for sure. It's more to do, I guess, with a larger winery where I used to work. But in terms of gaining efficiencies, I think what I found was a good way to do it was to actually map out, what you're actually doing, and see if you can use automation to help you out, making things more efficient. So, for example, in New Zealand, we were crushing 20,000 tonnes, and a lot of that was Sauvignon Blanc. So, for example, a certain grade of Sauvignon Blanc would always have the same crush note, as an example, or crush and press note. So we just load up the templates in Ringtrace for that, for that grade of Sauvignon Blanc, and you put in all your additions that would be similar or the same, and and any of the processes that would be the same in terms of the notes required for each press load. And then, yeah, so when you go to write a press note, all you do is just click, you know, A grade Sauvignon Blanc, and it would just give you the note straight away. So we would do that through every process to see where there was something repetitive. For example, you know, finishing a ferment, you would add, depending on the wine, you would add a certain amount of sulfur, maybe some bentonite, or, you know, whatever your process is. And we'd have, you know, templates set up for additions for finishing a ferment. So when you're writing a note, you just go finish ferment, template, boom, and it would just give you just type in your tanks, and it would just fill out all the additions for you, and you wouldn't, you know, you just go through and check, and you could write, you know, 10 or 20 finished notes in about 1 minute if you really needed to. So yeah, we find that actually mapping out what you're actually doing, and if there's anything repetitive, you know, use automation or the systems that you've got to simplify it really and make it more efficient. Yeah.
It's always interesting speaking with you, Chris, because you've come from that big corporate background, and now you've got your own little side. Yet all these same tools,
yes,
they're very scalable from one end to the other. And you know, Ian, as well, you speak about being a small company. Yet you mentioned you've got timers, level controllers, remote sensing in your facility. Can you tell us a bit about what you've got set up there?
Yeah, I mean, probably just going off some of Chris's comments, you know, in a smaller company, you're generally doing a lot more things. And so you tend to be jack of all trades and generally time poor. And probably the two processes that I've found have been really good that work around the app are basically, if I'm in a vineyard and we've got grower and block, and I can stand there and I can book it in as I'm going on my phone, and basically you don't forget, which is what generally happens. Some fruit turns up that you'd forgotten, you'd told the grower they could pick, and you know, that's obviously downloaded immediately to your calendar, and it's all there for you. So you come back at lunchtime and essentially you know, your next 7 days maybe programmed already for you to prepare for your fruit receival. And the other thing that we do, I mean, we don't have a lot of automation in the actual winery itself, but our cellar staff will take the Beaumets and temperatures, and each tank they load that in live. So you've got a sort of a morning and an afternoon live data. You can immediately look at things and just see how things are tracking. And that helps us with forward planning for you know, what's ready to press off, and you know, just allows you to sort of schedule the amount of staff you need. So I find that to be very visual and very hands-on. And it's very simple technology. It's in your hand and you can see it. So we had lots of issues with collating barrel data with counts and things like that. So we went to barcoding and, you know, barcoded our whole winery. And so scanning in vessels and scanning out vessels for cellar worksheets has also been another thing to stop the sort of second count of having to go back and, no, this doesn't add up, and try to do a quick stock take and work out where you're going. So we've found that sort of barcode technology to be really useful, and you could just, yeah, it's made a lot less double counting.
Sure. And so you mentioned the word, hang on, what have I've gone and clicked on alert. Let's go get my.
I think
who owns the technology company here? So, yeah, you mentioned, Ian, that the real time you've mentioned a couple of times, which I find interesting. So, I guess that's you know, in the past, from a, you know, wine keeping records perspective, I think a lot of people were were probably doing it for their compliance and to tick off a box for LIP or getting an export approval, and so they'd be entering it maybe 3 days later at best, perhaps at the end of the quarter or something. But it sounds like you're making use of that real time, so you can actually make active decisions and use the data to make your wine, as opposed to use the data just to tick requirements off. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's also a security protocol for, which really covers the cellar hands and the staff. Essentially, if they don't have a worksheet, they can't do the job. So essentially nothing should be happening without a worksheet. So it empowers your winemaking teams to make sure those things are developed. And so they're working proactively so that the staff come in the next morning and the jobs are set. So it just keeps everything on the front foot. I don't like the concept of sometime in May sitting down and trying to backtrack 3 or 4 months of seller worksheets and punching them in. That's just silly. And we went from an Excel spreadsheet winemaking system, which at the end of the day one of the staff would sit there for probably 2 hours and try to update everything manually, to now it's about 15 minutes work at the end of the day to set up the next day's work.
Oh. And Wolff, I think you had something to add there, but we might have.
Yeah. So one of the things is basically having the remote accessibility and having the power of having an app with your winery software has been a godsend in terms of especially COVID, but just in general. We have our own viticulturist as well now. So he can basically just go around the vineyards, put everything in the app, and doesn't have to communicate with anyone else because the winery software does it for him. So that's been really good. And another thing, when you're doing data entry to your winery software, it is great to then get something out of it. For instance, you can print your pallet labels for your bottling, that sort of stuff. You want to try to make your data work, not just putting it in.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, Jamie, I don't know how people don't do it live these days. It's going what Ian was saying. It's why wouldn't you do it live? Because then you know exactly what's going on. But also, I like the feature of the tank board or the virtual tank board. Being a live system, if you keep it that way, you can just you can look at see what tanks are empty, what tanks have got notes against them that are going to be filled. So, I don't know about everyone else, but I stopped using a whiteboard about 13 years ago, and it's been great.
I have to go back. I think that's about the time we implemented you guys, wasn't it?
Yes.
There we go. So I've got one sort of towards the end here. I guess I've got to throw this out. We've got sort of smaller family-owned type setups. We've got larger enterprise setups. So I guess what are the day-to-day tools? We know you all use Ringtrace and experience with Ringtrace, and I'm happy for you to talk about that. But what else are you using day-to-day?
Well, speaking from my current setup, being in Australia and the wine being in New Zealand, the only thing I'm using is Ringtrace, just to keep an eye on what's going on and requesting things. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward for me. I'm not really using anything else currently.
Are you writing seller notes from here and they're getting completed over there, or?
No, I just but I can see what's going to be done. Like if a seller note's waiting to be done, I can check it, things like that. But it's more for, if I request analysis and things like that, I can see when it's been done. And, if a racking or something's been done, I can see if there's any balances that need sorting out and things like that. So that's, I'm not using technology probably as a winemaking tool as such right now, because I'm not based at a winery, but in terms of viewing what's going on, that's my main tool. Yeah. And also, I guess my mobile phone, that's the
mobile phone.
Yeah. Yeah. everything's on the cloud. I should actually say I'm using cloud-based tools for all my work, so I can actually do pretty much anything from anywhere just off my phone currently.
Oh, it's phenomenal what you can do with your mobile phone, including TikTok, if that's what you really want to get around. What about yourself, Ian? What's your day-to-day tools that you're, for winemaking or anything else within the business?
Yeah, probably my phone's my number one go-to. Certainly in the normal world, we're traveling a lot more globally, and we actually, can get an email saying analysis is done from our lab, and then we can look at something and write a seller worksheet and press print if you're in London, and it comes out here in our office and the guys can grab it. So, and we do that regularly when we need to move wines around if we're not present in the office. So between my app and my laptop, that pretty well can cover it, and obviously a phone. I think growing a business, if it's a small family-owned business, often I'd ask why you'd want to, but if you are heading a pathway where it is growing to a multi-site facility, I think streamlining your systems is really important, and having information from a staff point of view so they can actually be familiar with each site, and you're using whether it's the same accounting system or the same winemaking system. That always, brings about simplicity, be it servicing it, training people, having replacement parts, whatever you're doing across the board. That's the way I'd look at it.
Yeah, and yourself, Wolff, what's your day-to-day?
We basically have nearly everything in the cloud now. That includes our quality document control software, winery software, temperature control, general things like SharePoint, etc. VPN access to certain data as well. So all that is remotely accessible. But having the power of mobile phones and tablets to do things like remote food safety audits, that sort of stuff, is just great to have all that technology. You basically want to make the use out of all of the computing power that you get and have it all accessible and work together.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, when we started Ringtrace, Josh, I can't claim this one, but it's quite funny. Josh's lines. The cloud was where rain came from when we first started, but we chose to deploy Ringtrace in the web browser just because it made sense. It was only the three of us, and it was how can we keep it lean, and we won't have the resources to go out and upgrade a whole heap of desktops everywhere. And to begin with, people were saying, "Oh, you're mad. Nobody's in the wine industry is going to want to be doing it that way. They're all based in regional areas and whatnot." And these days, when we get requirements documents from the smallest to the largest, it's one of the first questions. You guys cloud-based, and if it's not yes, there's probably not much sense talking anymore. So it's been quite an amazing journey that we've been on. Seeing that shift in the way the world works, and it did it, and it was doing it just ahead of looping back to COVID that I said we won't be talking about, ahead of that. And if it wasn't for all these technologies, I think the current state of the world wouldn't be even as good as it is now. So yeah, it is quite amazing. So look, I think I'm happy to start wrapping things up there. If you guys had anything else to add, feel free. But I'm going to stop this share, and I'm going to see if we've got any sort of questions coming in. So for all the panelists out there, or the attendees out there, if you've got any questions now, we'd be more than happy to answer them. Just pop them in the Q&A section. No, it's always the first one's always the hardest. to go. Here we go. They're coming in now. So, ooh.
Actually, I was going to say, Jamie, with multi-site setups, with company I was previously working for, they had an enterprise system of their own, and then one of the sites got Ringtrace added, and they were still able to use both systems integrating with each other to a certain degree. But yeah, just out of interest, that was an interesting point.
Yeah, we've got an interesting. Somebody's asking if anyone's Helen here's asking if anyone's using tablets for job notes in the cellar.
Yeah,
so I know that we've got the mobile app for that. So is anyone using that?
Yeah, we have tablets for our data input for temperature and BOMO and for dip checks and things like that. We effectively aren't asking people to have our winemaking records on their private phones. So we provide a tablet in the winery for, I guess, security, and allow us to contain our information, allow the operators of the staff to be able to access it. They don't have to bother us to find out what a dip is or something like that. So yes, we have tablets.
Yeah, I was going to say we were using it for actual job notes, more on, well, this is when I was at the other winery, but more on things that are a bit more fixed. So for example, crossflow in a bigger winery setup. So there'd just be a tablet there on the crossflow. The job note would just be on there. They'd see where they were going, and we found that to be quite good. Just to, if you're looking to get things rolling with actual paperless systems, just find a quite a repetitive task to start it off with, and then roll it out from there.
Wow, great.
I can answer a couple of the other questions. The feedback on implementation is we just actually have a second winery in New Zealand, and we essentially just rolled that out recently. But I think it's always easier to do it when the least amount of data's in the place. So it's kind of just before vintage when there's the least amount of wine, but it's a pretty quick turnaround. So I don't see that as something that's too arduous. Admittedly, it was a small facility, but it's pretty painless.
That like everyone's got that idea of putting us in just when the winery's at its emptiest, and so that's we always call that our harvest time, where we talk to everyone. Oh, what's going to suit you, and we can pick the window that everyone's going to say, and getting it in. So yeah, you're right. Getting the implementations, we can do them as quickly as 2 weeks. Obviously depending on the size and everybody's availability. But we always work with the customer and get it done as best we can. I think Wolff, you've put your hand up to answer Jonathan's question on the linkage.
Yes, so one of the advantages is for the analysis. First of all, you can actually schedule it. You can say, okay, I want this analysis to be done in 2 weeks, and then again in 6 weeks, something like that. And what we've also found really helped, which we have recently done, is we've trained more people on being able to update the work notes. We've probably got about close to 30% of our staff now being able to do this, which means you can have these work notes updated very fast by winemakers, laboratory staff, and then this analysis linkage works really well, because I do concede that you want to have your work orders updated fast, so you can then get the most out of your analysis. And the visibility of this in the new version of Ringtrace is better. It's presented in a better way. So anyone who hasn't tried that out yet should do that too.
I think it's a really good feature with key worksheets to actually link analysis and time frame to those, so that actually automatically populates our lab staff, and effectively their work's generated for them in a diarised fashion. So if you don't want to test a wine free sulfur till, 2 days later after you've added it, so it's had time to settle. When the worksheet's updated, that then generates a flag for the lab to go and test that wine and back as an example. So I think that sort of sequencing of the integration of the processes allows them to naturally generate, and then you kind of don't have to chew anyone out over, coming back and not having it done. It's preloaded, and you know that you're going to get that result in a known time frame.
Nice, and I think you guys can click answered once that's done there, Wolf, on that one. So I think, Chris, you've put your hand up to answer the next one there.
Yeah. Question from Helen. I know Helen. Hi, Helen. With the organic and vegan additives and things, definitely within Ringtrace there's a lot more room to put in descriptions and what actually you're adding, and give it a bit more detail, where some other systems you're stuck to like a fixed amount of figures. Definitely can use it for organics. No problem at all.
I'll be happy to set up time with Helen as well, if she likes, where we can show the organic functionality. Certainly on 2 wines, one's organic or it's not, and there's warnings around blending. The additives, I'd be interested to hear what she's after, but yeah, there certainly is scope there for us to talk to her about that.
Yeah, just with all my wines are organics. I've done quite a bit with that. So yeah.
Nice.
I can answer that question for Stephen. I'm assuming, so we have both. We have a paperwork worksheet that goes out, and then there's obviously the tablet there, which people can look at. So for us, I think we have less errors rather than more. You went from a scenario of walking out and saying, hey, shift this wine to here and here. I'll be back later with a worksheet, just get it started, to now just, here's your worksheet, go through it with the many questions, and away you go. So for me, I think we've got less errors, and we've got, when you update a worksheet, you can see the losses and things like that. So you're also then prompted to actually investigate if something doesn't seem right. And, our rule is, if it doesn't look right, it isn't right. And don't just update it, go out and actually recount or redip or look for a spill or something like that, and look for a barrel or a tank that shouldn't have gone in. All those sort of things, that just a part of process, rather than just going, oh yeah, swings and roundabouts, it's good enough. If it doesn't look right, it generally isn't.
Yeah, and on that, with the sort of the app seller notes as well, sort of paper-based notes, which it's a fairly harsh environment out there. I don't have to tell you guys, and writing down things on a pen with inevitable something's going to get spilt on it. That note ends up in an in tray somewhere, which maybe at best is going to sit there for a couple of hours, maybe a couple of days, and then picking up and trying to read what that handwriting says, can be challenging, especially if it's smudged and going back. Whereas on the phone, it's put in there and the numbers in there, and it's locked away. So I believe the non-paper based is certainly less prone to errors than paper based. There's shortcuts on the phone, very easy to select if something's full or empty, etc. So yeah, I believe it lends itself to less errors. Jonathan's, I'm going to answer the next one for Jonathan around wine allocation. We actually just did an in-house presentation yesterday to our support and sales teams around some new allocation functionality that's going to get rolled out. I promise this isn't a Dorothy Dixer. I didn't lay this question on here now. So we've been able to use some bulk wine allocation for a little while now, but now we've got finished goods allocation, so that you can create a product and assign a percentage of a tank to that product, and the tank can be assigned or allocated to multiple products. and then you can link that to your finished goods SKUs and decide on, you know, what regions or what customers are going to get that. So, Jonathan, if you want to reach out, and an email will come out, there'll be some follow up on this, but if you want to reach out and set up time to discuss, have a look, we'd be more than happy to take you through that. What about reporting? Helen, here's another question from your friend Helen there, Chris.
Yeah, Wolf, do you want to answer? But yeah, that current report you're talking about there, Helen, does already exist. You can set up any losses versus any jobs for dates. So yeah, that report exists, and you can customize reports quite easily.
As part of the service as well, with certain levels of subscriptions, we can help create custom dashlets and whatnot. Obviously, we've got subscriptions varying from the small boutique for the smallest of producers up to our enterprise. So within certain subscriptions, we're certainly able to help set up customized dashlets and dashboards for you.
Yes, so we've had 2 reports that Ringtrace made for us. They're for post-bottling analysis, for instance, and they're great. If you have to change a little detail on it, it usually takes only a few hours to get that sorted. And we've also got a custom dashlet that we're using to warn us when a wine additive goes below a certain stock. So yeah, really good. And you can also customize the bulk wine search to get reporting data out of that really easily with all the different filters.
Got a question from Shannon about adding photos of fruit and vines. I'll let you guys tackle. I'll ask you guys first. Are any of you guys taking photos of the fruit with the app?
No.
No.
Not for any other reason than I don't.
Yeah.
I've got glasses and a beard. Maybe I'm getting old.
I actually woke up this morning. I thought I'm going to get on one of these things. I probably should shave for the COVID stubble going. But I do know that we saw a big increase in the amount of photos being stored when we released the app. So we've had the ability to store photos of the fruit for probably close to, probably even before we officially had version 2, it would have been 1 point something. So for years and years, we've had that ability. And it's again, it's that changing world in the short time that we've been in business has been, when we did that, it was a great idea. But at the time, everyone had Nokia 510s and maybe a Canon camera that you had to connect to your desktop and upload a fruit. So whilst people liked the idea of viewing the fruit, back then it just wasn't really, it was a lot of effort to get it in there. And as soon as we released the phone and having the app on the phone and using the camera there, we saw a huge uptake in the amount of pictures being stored on the systems. So yes, Shannon, there's definitely people out there adding images of fruit, and you can also add images and documents on other transactions. Perhaps you've got a bulk wine intake and you've got the paperwork, and you can take a photo of that paperwork and store it against the intake, etc. So there's lots of touch points for those kind of things. And does anyone want to have a go at Marco's last question there?
It's a multi-barrel addition. There's a worksheet that allows you to essentially pick the batch, pick your additive, choose your rate, and it just generates the addition for every barrel. So that's pretty simple.
And you could do that across multiple batches as well. It doesn't even have to be within the one batch. If you wanted to add something to every vessel at the same rate across your entire winery, you could do that with a search and a few clicks, and it'll go and work out the numbers. And then if you're happy with it and add them that way, you can go save it. So But I think that looks like we're at the end of the questions there, team. So, you know, thanks again for taking the time to join us, and thanks to my panelists here who given up a little bit more than just this. There's a bit of effort required that we ask for them, you know, ahead of this as well. So I'd like to thank you three guys as well. And if there's any other questions that people want to ask and they've forgotten to ask on here, feel free to reach out and join me. But thanks very much for taking the time.
No, thanks, guys. Yes.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.